Hello, my name is Ivan, and I thought I knew everything about my family. But when I found out what my son said about my ex-wife's $90 will, it shattered everything I believed. He told me I'd get nothing. But the lawyer just dropped a bombshell, a secret clause. What kind of twisted game are they playing? And how far will I go to uncover the truth? I thought I knew betrayal, but this is something else. Can I still save what's left of my family? Or is it too late? It was a quiet Tuesday morning when the phone rang, slicing through the stillness of my small living room. I had barely moved since the night before, sitting in the same old chair, looking out the window at the empty street and reflecting on the silence of my life. My routine was simple, a blend of mundane chores and the occasional trip to the local coffee shop for something to break the monotony. At 62, the years of hard work behind me had finally allowed me the peace I thought I needed, though deep down, I knew there was always something missing, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. The phone's sudden ringing broke my thoughts. I glanced at the screen, an unknown number. It was probably a telemarketer, but still I couldn't ignore it. Hello? My voice was gruff, a product of too many silent mornings. Mr. Ivan Carter, a crisp voice on the other end asked. Yes, this is Ivan, I replied, not sure where this was headed. I'm calling from Tilden and Associates. I'm afraid I have some unexpected news for you, the lawyer said. His tone was formal, almost too formal, but it felt as though he was preparing me for something significant. I leaned forward in my chair, a wave of unease washing over me. What's this about? I'm sorry to inform you, but your ex-wife, Sylvia Carter, has passed away. The words hit me like a punch to the gut, knocking the breath out of me. Sylvia, dead? The woman I hadn't spoken to in years, the one who had walked out of my life long before I could even begin to understand what went wrong. Her passing shouldn't have felt like a shock, but it did. I couldn't even begin to process the reality of it. She passed away? I repeated, my voice cracking slightly, betraying a vulnerability I wasn't used to showing. Yes, it was quite sudden. She left a will, and you're named as a beneficiary. A beneficiary? What the hell could Sylvia have left me? We hadn't spoken in over a decade. The silence between us had been thick, loaded with all the regrets, mistakes, and broken pieces of a marriage that had never quite worked out. The thought of her leaving me, anything, felt absurd. Wait a second, I said, still trying to process everything. Why, after all these years? Why now? I can't go into details over the phone, Mr. Carter, but you're requested to come in for the reading of the will tomorrow at 10 a.m., the lawyer continued, his voice unyielding. My mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of my past with Sylvia. The years of love, anger, and regret all tangled together, the bitterness never fully dissipating. Why would she name me in her will? What had I done to deserve that, to deserve anything? I'll be there, I said, my voice firm despite the confusion swirling inside me. The line went silent for a moment, and then the lawyer gave me the address. We exchanged a few more formalities, and then I hung up, still sitting there, my hand gripping the phone like it was a lifeline. Sylvia was gone, and somehow her death had brought me back into the fold, back into a life I thought I had closed the door on. I set the phone down, my mind reeling. Why was I named in the will? What did she want from me, even in death? But the question that loomed larger than the rest was, why hadn't I gotten closure? Why hadn't I moved on from her, or from Brock, our son, who had always been more her child than mine? I stood up, walking over to the window and staring out at the calm morning. The neighborhood looked the same as it always had, empty houses, quiet streets, nothing to remind me of the chaos that once consumed my life. My gaze shifted, and I saw a familiar sight, the old tree in the front yard, where Sylvia and I had spent many nights talking about dreams, hopes, and what we would become. I could hardly recognize the man I was back then, full of hope, thinking everything would work out. It felt like a lifetime ago, but now that man would be called upon again, for a will reading. What could Sylvia have left for me, and why, after all this time? These were questions I needed answers to, and tomorrow I would find out. I took a deep breath, and the weight of the past began to settle back in. It was time to face it. The day went on in a blur. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to sleep that night,
but eventually exhaustion won out. I tossed and turned for hours, replaying the conversation over and over in my head. Why now? What did Sylvia leave behind for me? And what did Brock think of this? When I finally woke up, the first light of dawn was creeping in through the blinds. I didn't feel ready.
I grabbed a quick breakfast, dressed in the same old clothes I'd worn for years, and left my house, the familiar suburban landscape now feeling more foreign than it ever had before. I drove to the address the lawyer had given me, feeling a lump form in my throat with every passing mile. My hands were cold on the steering wheel, my thoughts scattered. The law office was a block of sterile, gray buildings, one of which had a brass plaque that read Tilden and Associates. I parked, took another deep breath, and stepped out of the car. I couldn't shake the feeling that something big was coming, something that would change everything. I walked toward the door, hesitated, then pushed it open. I entered the lawyer's office with a mix of confusion and anticipation. The building itself was sterile, with the faint smell of coffee lingering in the air. The cold, clinical atmosphere did nothing to calm the uneasy feeling in my chest. I glanced around, but there was no sign of Brock. Yet, I had a feeling he would show up. He always did when it came to things that mattered, especially if money was involved. But for now, I stood alone, just me and the thought of Sylvia. I sat down, feeling the weight of the chair beneath me as if it were about to swallow me whole. There was no turning back now. The last time I'd been in a place like this had been for our divorce years ago. That was a long time ago, but the bitterness from that time had never really faded. As I looked up, the lawyer, a clean-cut, well-dressed man in his mid-50s, walked in. He introduced himself with a handshake and motioned for me to sit. The stiff, rehearsed professionalism in his voice only heightened my sense of unease. "Ivan," he said, "thank you for coming. We're waiting on one more person, but we can start the reading of the will." I nodded, trying to stay calm. I could hear the sound of footsteps approaching, and soon enough Brock walked in, looking as dismissive as ever. He didn't even acknowledge me with a nod. Instead, he sat down across from me with a smirk, leaning back in his chair like he owned the place. The tension between us was palpable. It wasn't the first time he had made me feel small, but it still stung. The lawyer looked between us, a bit uncomfortable with the silence hanging in the air. "Shall we begin?" "Yeah," I muttered. "Let's just get this over with." The lawyer cleared his throat and opened a folder in front of him. "I have here the last will and testament of Sylvia Carter. As stipulated, both of you are present as the primary individuals named in the will." He started reading, his voice steady and impersonal. I couldn't help but feel detached from the words he spoke. This wasn't just about the money or property. This was about Sylvia, about her decision to include me after all these years of silence and resentment. "Ivan Carter is to receive a portion of Sylvia's estate," the lawyer continued, "but the distribution is conditional." That last word caught my attention. "Conditional?" I sat up straighter. "What does that mean?" Brock scoffed, his arms crossed, his gaze skeptical. The lawyer continued, his eyes scanning the paper before him. "Sylvia's instructions are clear. Ivan's portion is contingent upon certain actions that need to be taken." I felt the room tighten. What the hell was this? What could Sylvia have possibly meant by certain actions? My mind raced through the possibilities, each one more confusing than the last. Brock leaned forward, a cynical smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "What, is Dad supposed to do something special to earn his share now?" His voice dripped with sarcasm. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of responding, but I couldn't help it. "Shut up, Brock." The lawyer raised a hand, signaling for silence. "The will specifies that these conditions are personal in nature and not financial." I looked at the lawyer, now even more confused. "What kind of conditions?" I asked, my voice tight. The lawyer sighed, clearly not enjoying this part of the job. "The conditions involve reconciliation with family members, specifically with your son, Brock." I blinked, stunned. "What? Reconciliation? With Brock?" The lawyer nodded. "Yes, Ivan. Sylvia's wish was that you repair the relationship with your son. Only then will you be entitled to the inheritance in full." Brock's face twisted with disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me. You really think Dad deserves anything from her after all this time?" His words stung more than I wanted to admit. I felt my jaw clench and anger surge through me. This wasn't just about Sylvia anymore. It was about Brock's complete lack of respect for me, for everything I had done. I don't know why she did this, I muttered, the frustration beginning to boil inside me. But I'm not here for the money. I'm here to understand why she left me anything at all. Brock shot me a look of pure disdain. You've got a lot of nerve, old man. My heart was heavy with resentment, but I kept my voice steady. I'm not asking for your approval, Brock. I'm asking to understand what she wanted, what she thought I could do to fix things. Brock's response was to throw his hands up in the air as if this was all just a joke. You think this will fix everything? You think you can just show up and get everything back? You can't change the past. There it was again, that familiar tone, dismissive, condescending, the same tone that had made me feel invisible for years. I wasn't about to let it continue. Maybe I can't change the past, I said, my voice cold, but I'm not going to let you dictate what happens next. Brock's expression shifted, his smirk fading slightly as he realized that I wasn't backing down. There was a tension in the air now, a real sense of unease that neither of us could ignore. The lawyer cleared his throat again, looking between the two of us. If I may, let's continue. The conditions are not just about reconciling with Brock, but also about proving yourself. Sylvia believed in second chances, but only if those who received them truly earned them. I turned back to the lawyer, my mind racing. What did this mean for me? How could I fix something that had been broken for so long? The lawyer paused as if waiting for a reaction before adding, "There is one more clause." And Sylvia also stated that if the family cannot reconcile, the inheritance will go to charity. That was the kicker. Not only was I left with this impossible task, but if I failed, I wouldn't even have a shot at the inheritance. It would be gone to people I didn't even know. Great, Brock muttered. So now you've got to play nice with me, or you get nothing. I felt my heart sink, and at the same time something else stirred. This wasn't just about money. This was about redemption, about trying to make things right, even if it meant swallowing my pride. I'll do it, I said, my voice firm. Brock scoffed, but I was past caring. It was time to make things right, even if it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. The following day, I found myself back at the lawyer's office, the sense of uncertainty weighing heavily on my chest. The same sterile, uninviting walls greeted me, but today they felt even colder. I had to understand what Sylvia was trying to do with this will, why she had chosen me after all this time. Why now? I walked through the door, my steps purposeful, my mind a storm of questions. The lawyer greeted me, his calm demeanor doing little to ease the tension in my chest. "Mr. Carter," he said, "we're ready to go over the specifics of the will now." I nodded, unable to speak. I sat down across from him, knowing that whatever I learned today would shape everything that came after. The silence between us felt suffocating. He adjusted his glasses, then began. "The first thing you need to understand is that this will is more than just a distribution of assets," he said, pausing as though gathering his thoughts. "Sylvia wanted to ensure that there were no loose ends, particularly when it came to your relationship with your son, Brock." My mind began to race. I knew this would be more than just money, but I didn't expect it to be a test. "There's a clause," the lawyer continued, "a secret clause, added after your divorce. This clause requires you to take specific actions in order to unlock your inheritance." I could feel the weight of his words settle over me like a heavy blanket. My hands trembled slightly, but I forced myself to keep calm. "What kind of actions?" I asked, my voice steady, though my mind was spinning. The lawyer hesitated before answering. "Your inheritance is contingent upon you mending your relationship with Brock. Sylvia wanted to see if you could rebuild what was broken between you two." My heart sank. Sylvia's final wish, her attempt at redemption, was buried within these words. It wasn't just about money, it was about fixing what had been shattered long ago. My pulse quickened as the realization set in. I hadn't been prepared for this. "Reconcile with Brock?" I whispered, more to myself than to him. "After all this time?" The lawyer nodded, his eyes briefly flicking to the paperwork in front of him. "Yes, Ivan." She believed there was still a chance to heal the wounds. I leaned back, trying to digest what he'd just said. Reconciliation. Sylvia, in her final moments, had hoped I could patch things up with Brock. But how? After years of bitterness, how could I even begin to make things right? "This is A lot to take in, I murmured, running a hand through my hair. My thoughts were a jumbled mess. A part of me wanted to walk away, but another part, somewhere deep inside, knew I couldn't. I couldn't ignore it. Not now. You're telling me the inheritance is tied to something like this? I asked, my voice low. The lawyer's face remained calm, but I could see the faintest hint of sympathy in his eyes. Yes, Ivan. You need to repair the relationship with Brock to gain full access to the inheritance. I sat in stunned silence. I'd always known Sylvia had a strong sense of family, but this was beyond anything I had imagined. I hadn't been able to fix my relationship with Brock in all these years, and now it seemed I had one last shot, one final opportunity to do what I couldn't before. As I sat there, the silence stretched on, and the weight of Sylvia's request became clear. This wasn't just about money. It was about redemption. The inheritance was a means to an end, a challenge set before me, testing not just my ability to move forward, but my willingness to admit where I had failed. Suddenly, the door opened, and Brock walked in. His presence in the room felt like a punch to the gut. His eyes narrowed when he saw me, and the tension between us thickened immediately. He didn't even bother with pleasantries, just a curt nod before sitting down beside me. I barely looked at him. I didn't need to. His disdain was evident in every small gesture, the way he adjusted his collar, the way he crossed his arms as if preparing for a fight. The lawyer cleared his throat, breaking the silence. Now, Ivan, he said, there's one more thing. Brock is aware of the clause in the will. He knows about the reconciliation requirements. Brock's lips twisted into a sneer. I knew it, he muttered. You think this money's going to fix things, don't you? The words stung more than I cared to admit, but I refused to let them show. I wasn't here for Brock's approval. Not anymore. I'm not asking for your approval, Brock, I said, my voice steady. I'm here to understand why Sylvia thought I needed to prove myself. This isn't just about money. This is about fixing what's been broken. Brock scoffed, but there was something darker in his eyes now. And you think you can just waltz in here and make everything better? After all these years, now you want to fix it? I could feel the anger building inside me, the frustration of years of distance and coldness. But Sylvia had left me this chance. No matter how impossible it felt, I had to try. You don't get it, do you? I said, my voice rising slightly. I'm not doing this for the money, Brock. I'm doing this because it's the only shot I've got left. Sylvia wanted us to fix this, and I'm going to try, whether you like it or not. Brock didn't respond right away. He sat there, arms crossed, looking at me with a mixture of disbelief and disdain. The air between us crackled with tension, but I refused to back down. The lawyer sat in silence, watching us both. The weight of the moment was almost suffocating. I didn't know what came next, but I was damn sure I wasn't going to walk away from it without trying. Brock finally broke the silence, his voice colder than ever. You'll never fix it, Dad. Not now, not ever. His words hit like a slap in the face, but I didn't flinch. I couldn't afford to. This was the challenge Sylvia had left for me, and no matter how much it hurt, I had to face it head on. The lawyer gave a nod, acknowledging the tension in the room. There's no easy way forward, Ivan, he said. But if you want to unlock the inheritance, you'll have to face your past and your son. I nodded, but my heart felt like it was sinking into my chest. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy, and Brock's hostility was only the beginning. But I wasn't backing down. This was my last chance. I drove to Brock's apartment the next day with a mix of determination and dread weighing heavily in my chest. I wasn't sure what I expected when I rang the doorbell, but I knew this conversation couldn't be avoided anymore. It had to happen. I had to make him understand, to try, at least, to break down the wall that had grown between us over the years. When Brock opened the door, I could see the tension in his face before he even spoke. There was no warmth, no welcome, just a coldness that I had grown used to over the years. His eyes flickered to me, then quickly looked away as he stepped aside to let me in. I hesitated in the doorway, unsure of where to begin. The apartment was sterile, devoid of warmth, much like the relationship we had shared. I had hoped that time would heal the wounds, but standing here now, I realized how much distance had grown between us, and no amount of talking could change that overnight. I didn't expect you to show up, Brock said, his voice clipped, his arms crossed defensively over his chest. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. I know we've got a lot to work through, Brock, but I want to start somewhere. Brock didn't move. His posture alone spoke volumes. He didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to make room for any of this. Look, he continued, eyes narrowed. I'm not in the mood for your bullshit, okay? If you're here because of that will, then just spit it out. I don't want your money, and I'm certainly not interested in whatever reconciliation you think we can have. His words stung, but I forced myself to stay calm. This wasn't about the inheritance. This was about the broken bridge between us, the years of distance, the pain I had never addressed, and he had never forgiven. I'm not here for the money, I said, the words sounding almost foreign as I said them aloud. I'm here because I want to make things right, Brock. And I know I've hurt you, but I'm trying. I want to try, Brock scoffed. Try? You think you can just walk in here after all this time and try? You didn't even care enough when I was a kid, and now you want me to believe this sudden change? I was silent for a moment, the weight of his words sinking in. He was right about one thing. I hadn't been there when it mattered. I had failed him, and he had every reason to be angry. But that didn't mean I wasn't willing to change now. I know I wasn't there for you, Brock, I said quietly. But that's the past, and I can't change it. What I can do is try now. I can try to fix this, even if it's hard, even if you don't believe me. His expression hardened. You think I don't believe you? It's not that simple. You don't get to just undo the damage you've done with a few words. This isn't a goddamn movie, old man. I felt the heat of frustration rise within me, but I bit my tongue. He was right. This wasn't a movie. Life didn't work like that, but this was my reality now. I didn't have a choice but to face it, to face him, even if it meant swallowing my pride. Look, I'm not asking for forgiveness right away, I said, keeping my voice even. I'm asking for a chance to show you that I'm serious about making things right. Brock's eyes flashed with anger, his arms tightening across his chest. A chance? He repeated, his voice dripping with disbelief. You've had years, old man. And now, suddenly you think you can fix everything? Just because Sylvia left you a little bit of money, you think that gives you the right to waltz in here and make it all better? I felt my heart sink, the years of resentment and anger bubbling to the surface. I had always tried to push those feelings down, but now they were breaking through. I'm not asking for your forgiveness just because of some money, Brock, I snapped, my voice rising. I'm asking because I'm trying to make amends, because I know I've been a terrible father. But I'm here now, and I'm not walking away. Not again. Brock's face reddened as the words hit him. For a brief moment, I saw something in his eyes, a flicker of something softer. But just as quickly it was gone, replaced by the same anger that had driven him away all these years. You're wasting your time, he muttered, his voice harsh. I've already made peace with the fact that you'll never change. You're never going to be the dad I needed. So stop pretending you can be. I was struck silent by his words, the finality of them sinking in like a stone in my chest. The fight had gone out of me. Maybe he was right. Maybe I had failed him too much. But no, I wasn't going to let this be the end. I couldn't. You don't get to decide that for me, Brock, I said, my voice steady now, though it was filled with pain. I may have been a failure as a father, but I'm not going to just walk away from you now. I'm here, and I'm going to keep fighting, whether you like it or not. Brock's gaze shifted, and for a moment there was something there, something that made me think, just for a second, that maybe he wasn't as resolute as he appeared. But then he hardened again, his expression closing off. I don't need this, Ivan, he said, his tone sharp. I don't need you, and I don't need you coming here, pretending like you can fix everything. It's too late for that. The words hit me harder than I cared to admit. I could feel the weight of them, the way they crushed the last of my hope. But somewhere deep inside me, a flicker of determination refused to die. This wasn't over yet. I turned and walked out of his apartment, the door closing with a soft thud behind me. As I drove away, the sense of defeat washed over me. But there was still something inside me, something that refused to let go. The inheritance, the reconciliation, the guilt, it was all tangled together, but I wasn't done yet. I couldn't be. I sat in the driver's seat, the engine off but the car still running, my fingers drumming on the steering wheel. Brock's apartment loomed in front of me, just a few steps away from another possible rejection, another failed attempt at fixing what I had broken over the years. Time was slipping away, and with it, the terms of Sylvia's will. The pressure was heavy, but it wasn't just the inheritance that was at stake. It was something deeper, something more important than money. I had thought about this moment 1,000 times, replayed the scenes of past arguments, the silence, the long years of bitterness. But today, this would be different. I couldn't approach him with the same words, the same excuses. This had to be real. I had to prove to myself and to Brock that I wasn't the same man I used to be, that I could change, that I wanted to. I glanced at my phone, a simple message ready to be sent. This is our last chance, Brock. I won't ask for your forgiveness, but I will speak the truth. No games, no more lies. We need to clear the air. One last time. I hit send and felt the weight of those words settle into my chest like a stone. This wasn't about the will. It wasn't about anything Sylvia left behind. This was about me facing my own failures. It was about Brock and me. And if there was any hope for us to move forward, this was it. I grabbed the door handle and stepped out of the car. As I walked to his door, the air between us thickened, heavy with everything we had never said. When Brock opened the door, his face was unreadable, but I saw the familiar wall, the one I'd built too many times before. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. "Come in," he said, his voice flat, devoid of warmth. I stepped inside and the silence was unbearable. The apartment was quiet, too quiet, just like our relationship. I didn't know how to begin, didn't know if words could do justice to the years I had neglected him, but I had to try. I had no other choice. "Brock," I started, my voice steady but uncertain. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I'm not here to talk about the money or the inheritance. I'm here because I need to say something that's long overdue. I've failed you. I know that, and I can't fix that, but I can be honest with you now." His eyes hardened. "Oh, really? You think I'm just going to sit here and listen to you tell me that you've changed? After all these years? What's the catch, old man? Is this about the money? Is that why you're here?" I felt a sharp pang in my chest. No matter how many times I tried, I couldn't break through his defenses. But this time, I wouldn't back down. "No, it's not about the money," I said, my voice growing firmer. "I know I've made a mess of things, but I'm here because I need you to hear me out. I'm not asking for you to forgive me today or tomorrow, but I'm asking for the chance to rebuild what we lost. I can't change the past, but I can change what happens next." Brock scoffed and stepped back, his eyes cold. "You think that's enough? You've failed me, Dad. And now you think a few words are going to fix it. You think you can just walk in here after abandoning me for so long and change everything?" His words cut deep, but I refused to let them push me away. "I know I've hurt you. I'm not asking for it to be easy. I'm asking for a chance to prove to you that I can be better. I can be the father you needed me to be. And I'll show you that, not with words, but with actions." Brock's jaw clenched, and for a moment I thought he might throw me out. "You're wasting your time, old man. I'm past caring. I've already made peace with the fact that you're never going to change. This is just who you are. And it's too late to fix it." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to scream, to argue, but I knew deep down that no matter how much I wanted to change the past, I couldn't. But that didn't mean I was going to walk away, not this time. "I'm not walking away, Brock," I said, my voice low but resolute. "I'm here to do this the right way. Even if you don't believe me, I'm not leaving until you understand that I'm serious. I'm not asking for you to forgive me right now. I'm asking for a chance to prove I can be different." Brock's face twisted with frustration. "You think this is about you, don't you? You think all your words are going to fix this? You can't just say, 'I'm sorry,' and expect everything to be fine." I took a deep breath. "I know I can't fix this in one conversation, but I can start, and I will keep going no matter how long it takes, because I'm not going to give up on you, Brock. Not again." For a moment, Brock's expression flickered. There was a crack in his armor, a brief moment where I saw the pain and the anger, but also something softer, something almost like regret. But before I could say anything else, he spoke again. "I've moved on, okay? I don't need you to come in here and try to make things right. I've already accepted that you'll never change. And honestly, I don't care about the inheritance or any of this shit. You're too late. The words were harsh, but they weren't the same as before. He was still angry, still hurt, but there was something different now. Something more vulnerable in the way he said it. For the first time, I realized that maybe, just maybe, he still cared. He didn't want to admit it, but he was willing to entertain the idea that we could fix this, that I could prove him wrong. "I'm not giving up, Brock," I said softly, my voice steady. "I'm not asking you to forgive me today, but I'm asking for the chance to prove I can be the father you deserve. And I'll do whatever it takes, even if it's hard." Brock didn't respond right away. Instead, he just stood there looking at me, unsure of what to say. The silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know if this conversation would end with him slamming the door in my face, or if it would mark the beginning of something better. But in that moment, I knew I couldn't stop trying. As I walked away from his apartment, my heart felt heavy, but it also felt lighter than it had in years. I had said what needed to be said. Now it was up to Brock. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid to face it. I sat in the car, my hands gripping the steering wheel as if it could somehow steady my racing heart. The lawyer's office was just a few steps away, but those steps felt like a lifetime. Time was running out. Sylvia's will was still hanging over me, like an unwelcome reminder that I had one last chance to make things right with Brock. The inheritance had become secondary. What mattered now, more than anything, was repairing the relationship I'd let slip through my fingers over the years. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. The weight of the situation was pressing down on me. No more excuses, no more empty promises. This time, I had to show Brock that I was serious. Not just about the money, but about being the father he deserved. The lawyer's call had hinted at a twist I didn't see coming, and I was determined to face it head on, whatever it might be. I opened the car door, stepped out, and walked toward the building. My legs felt heavy, like they were carrying the weight of the world. The door to the firm swung open as I entered, the sterile, impersonal air of the office almost suffocating. The lawyer greeted me with a neutral expression and handed me a document. "This is it," he said quietly, motioning for me to sit down. "The final part of Sylvia's will." I looked at the document in my hands, unsure of what to expect. A part of me felt as though I already knew what it would say, but another part hoped for something, anything, that could help me fix the mess I'd made of my family. "Go ahead," the lawyer said, urging me to open it. I did, and my eyes scanned the text quickly. And then I froze. It was a clause, a secret clause. Sylvia had left me an inheritance, but only under one condition. I had to reconcile with Brock. It wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about rebuilding our relationship. We were required to attend therapy together. I couldn't believe it. My heart skipped a beat. Was this her idea of redemption? Of healing the wounds between us? The lawyer continued, explaining that if Brock didn't agree to the therapy, the inheritance would be void. And just like that, everything I thought I had left to hold on to was tied to something far more important than money: my son. I felt a surge of emotion rise within me: anger, confusion, and disbelief. Sylvia had always been the stronger one, the one with the plan. But this was more than I could have imagined. She wasn't just trying to make things right with me. She was trying to push me into action, to force me to face what I'd avoided for too long. The lawyer's voice broke through my thoughts. "You'll need Brock's agreement, and time is running out. The deadline for the inheritance is fast approaching." I stood there, the weight of the decision sinking in. The inheritance was right in front of me, but it wasn't enough. Not anymore. "I've made my decision," I said quietly, more to myself than anyone else. "It's not about the inheritance. It's about fixing what I broke. It's about my son." The lawyer nodded, his expression unreadable. "Then you'll need to act quickly." I left the office, the document still clutched in my hand. The decision felt like a weight on my chest, but it also felt like a door was opening. This wasn't just about a will. This was about facing the past, about proving to myself and to Brock that I could change. Later that evening, I found myself standing outside Brock's apartment once again. The same nerves, the same uncertainty. I hadn't expected things to be easy, but this was a test unlike anything I'd ever faced. Brock answered the door with a guarded expression, the distance between us as palpable as ever. "I need to talk," I said, my voice steady, though my insides were anything but. "Talk about what?" Brock asked, his tone flat. "I don't want to hear any more excuses." I took a deep breath, stepping inside. This wasn't about excuses anymore. "It's not about the money, Brock," I began, my voice catching slightly. "It never was. It's about us. About trying to fix this. I'm asking you to come to therapy with me. Not because I want the inheritance, but because I want to fix what's broken between us." Brock's face tightened. "You think a piece of paper and some therapist are going to change anything? You've had your chance. More than one." I could feel the anger building in me, but I held it in check. "I don't expect forgiveness right away. I'm asking for a chance to try, not just for the inheritance. For us." Brock shook his head, his voice rising. "You've messed up, Dad, and you think this will fix it?" I stood there, feeling like I was being torn apart. I didn't know what else to say. "Brock, I know I failed you, but I'm not giving up on you. Not now. Not ever." For a long moment, Brock didn't respond. He stood there, his arms crossed, his eyes dark with frustration. But then, something shifted. His shoulders slumped slightly, and for the first time in years, I saw the vulnerability in his eyes. "Why now?" he asked quietly. "Why after all this time?" I could only shake my head. "I don't know, but I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." The silence stretched between us. The air was thick with unspoken words, and for the first time I thought maybe, just maybe, we could start again. "I'll think about it," Brock finally said, his voice softer, almost reluctant. "But I'm not making any promises." That was all I needed. For the first time, I felt like we were standing on the same ground, even if it was shaky, but I wasn't backing down. Not this time. As I walked away from Brock's apartment, my mind raced. The inheritance was still on the table, but it no longer mattered. What mattered now was that Brock was willing to consider it. He wasn't shutting me out completely. There was hope, however small. The road ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain. I wasn't going to give up. Not now. Not ever. I sat in the car, staring at the clock. Every minute seemed to drag on, stretching the tension in my chest tighter with each passing second. This was it. The final conversation. The one that would decide everything. I was parked outside the park, a neutral ground where the air was thick with years of silence and unspoken words. I could already feel the weight of the moment, knowing that this was the last chance to fix what had been broken for far too long. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. I'd come to terms with it. The inheritance no longer mattered. What mattered now was Brock. The thought of fixing things with him, of finally being the father he needed, was what had been driving me for the last few days. But I couldn't ignore the nagging fear that the wall between us might be too high for either of us to climb. What if this time there was no way to break through? The door of the car creaked open, and I stepped out. The park looked quiet, peaceful, but I knew things here weren't going to stay that way for long. I walked toward the bench where I'd agreed to meet Brock. Every step felt heavier than the last. Brock was already there, standing by the bench, his arms crossed, his face a mask of impatience. He didn't say a word as I approached, his silence speaking volumes more than anything he could have said. "Brock," I started, my voice uncertain. He cut me off, his tone sharp. Don't come here with your excuses. We're done talking about the past." I felt my heart drop, but I refused to back down. "I know I've hurt you, but this isn't about excuses. I'm here because I want to make things right." Brock's expression faltered for just a moment, but then he recovered. "Right. After all these years, you think you can just waltz in and fix everything with a couple of words? That's not how it works, old man." His words hit hard, but I wasn't going to let him push me away. Not this time. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, Brock," I said, my voice steadying. "I just want you to know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild what we've lost." Brock scoffed, shaking his head. "You think that's enough? You've spent my whole life ignoring me, and now you think a few words will make up for that?" I couldn't argue with him. He was right. I'd been absent when he needed me the most. I'd let him down, time and time again, but I couldn't just give up. Not when there was still a chance to fix this. I don't expect it to be easy, I said, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. But I'm not going anywhere. I'll do whatever it takes, even if it takes years. Brock's face twisted with frustration, his jaw tightening. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then, with a heavy sigh, he finally let his guard down. You don't get it, do you? It's not just you, Dad. It's Mom. It's everything. I've been angry my whole life, not just at you, but at her, too. At the way everything fell apart, and now you're telling me to just forgive and forget. That's not how it works. I froze. What do you mean? He looked away, his eyes filled with a pain I hadn't expected. I've been carrying this anger for years, and it's not just about you. It's about the way everything happened, the way she left, the way you both let me down. I've been using that anger to protect myself, to keep from getting hurt again. I stood there, my heart pounding in my chest. I hadn't realized the depth of his pain. I hadn't understood how much he'd been holding in. I didn't know, I whispered. I had no idea it was this bad. Brock shrugged, his voice low. Of course you didn't. You were too busy with your own life to care about mine. I felt my own guilt rising, but I swallowed it down. This wasn't the time for excuses. Brock, I know I've failed you. I know I can't take back what I did. But I'm here now, and I'm willing to try. I'm asking you to try too. We can work through this, but we have to do it together. His face twisted in a mix of anger and pain. You think a little therapy is going to fix this? That's your big plan? To sit down with some stranger and talk about feelings? I don't know if it'll fix everything, I said quietly. But it's a start. It's the only chance we've got. Brock stared at me for a long time, his eyes searching mine, as if trying to find some sign that I wasn't just giving him more empty promises. Then, with a sigh, he let out a small, bitter laugh. You always think you can fix things with words. But maybe you're right. Maybe this is the only way forward. But don't get your hopes up. I'm not doing this for the inheritance. I'm doing it for us. For me, too. My chest tightened with a mix of relief and uncertainty. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. Brock was willing to try. But it wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be a quick fix. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, Brock said, his voice barely above a whisper. But I'm willing to try. We'll see where this goes. I nodded, my heart lighter than it had been in years. Thank you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. We stood there for a moment, neither of us knowing what to say next. Then slowly, Brock extended his hand. I took it, and for the first time in a long while, we both felt like we might just make it through. As we parted ways, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time, I felt like we were on the right path. The house was quiet, as it often was these days. The hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards were the only sounds that filled the space. The evening sun streamed through the window, casting a soft glow over the room. It was almost as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for the storm to come. I sat in the armchair by the window, staring out at the fading light. My mind was a maze of thoughts, each one leading to another, looping back again. It had been a long journey. The conversations with Brock had taken more out of me than I'd ever imagined. My efforts to rebuild our relationship felt like climbing a mountain with no summit in sight. But somehow, in the midst of all the pain, I'd found a flicker of hope. I knew this moment would either make or break everything. This wasn't just about the inheritance anymore. It was about healing, about making things right with my son. But I wasn't sure if it was possible. I picked up my phone, tapping the screen idly. The lawyer's name flashed across the screen. A small knot formed in my stomach. This wasn't just another routine check-in. Something felt different. My finger hovered over the answer button before I pressed it, bringing the phone to my ear. Ivan, I need to speak with you. The lawyer's voice was calm, but there was an edge of urgency in his tone. We've discovered something you missed. There's a final clause in Sylvia's will. My heart skipped a beat. A final clause. What more could there be? He continued, it's a condition for your inheritance, and for Brock's as well.
I felt the room spin slightly as I tried to process his words. A condition for Brock. What was he talking about? Before I could say anything, the lawyer explained the details. The inheritance wasn't just contingent on my relationship with Brock, it was conditional upon something more. Brock had to agree to allow me back into his life fully before I could receive the inheritance. And the condition was tied to therapy, both of us, together. Brock's approval was key. The weight of the revelation crashed into me. I'd thought I understood what was at stake, but this changed everything. My initial relief that the inheritance was within reach now felt hollow. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about Brock. Again. Do you understand what this means, Ivan? The lawyer's voice brought me back to reality. If Brock refuses this, everything is off the table. I felt my stomach tighten. If Brock refused, this was the moment. This was it, the last test. Yeah, I said quietly, my mind spinning. I understand. I hung up the phone and sat there, letting the silence settle over me. The coolness of the evening air hit my face as I opened the window, trying to clear my mind. But nothing seemed clear anymore. This decision wasn't just a matter of money. It was about Brock's future, and mine. It was about healing a wound that had been open for too long. I had no idea what Brock would decide, but I had to face him again. This time it wasn't just about asking for forgiveness, it was about being willing to accept whatever came next. I stood up, my body stiff from sitting too long. As I made my way to the door, I took a deep breath. The weight of the choice hung heavily on me, but there was a part of me, however small, that still had hope. If I was going to face Brock again, it couldn't be with any more excuses. This was the moment. This was my last chance. I dialed Brock's number. The park was quieter than I expected. The air was cool, the sky fading to soft shades of orange and purple as the sun sank lower. Brock was sitting on a bench, his arms crossed tightly over his chest, staring into the distance. He didn't look up as I approached, but I saw the way his posture stiffened when he realized I was there. Brock, I began, my voice steady, though I could feel my heart pounding. I need to talk to you. He turned his head slowly, his eyes narrow with suspicion. What now, Dad? More of your empty promises? I swallowed hard, not sure how to begin. This isn't about promises. It's about the reality of what's in front of us. We're both standing on the edge of something big, something that could change everything. Brock scoffed, shaking his head. You think I'm just going to fall for it? All this talk about fixing things? You've had your chances. I took a deep breath, trying to hold back the frustration that was building inside. I know. I've failed you, Brock. More times than I can count. But this isn't about me trying to make it all better with some quick fix. This is about facing the truth. Brock's eyes flashed with anger. The truth? The truth is that you were never there when I needed you. The truth is you abandoned me, not just as a kid, but as an adult. The words stung, but I didn't back away. I know, and I'm sorry. I've carried that guilt for a long time, and I'm not here to defend myself. I'm here to face it. I'm here to be the father I should have been. Brock's face twisted. You think I'm just going to let you walk back in and play the hero? You don't get to just come back after all this time. I felt the pressure rising in my chest, but then I remembered what the lawyer had said. Brock had to agree to something more for this to work. It wasn't just about words, it was about trust, something I had to earn. I don't expect it to be easy, I said quietly. But I'm asking for a chance, Brock. A chance to work through this, not just for me, but for us. There was a long silence between us. I could see the anger in his eyes, but there was something else too. Something that made me wonder if just maybe there was still hope. You don't get to do this, Dad, he muttered, his voice breaking just a little. Not after everything. I know I don't get to fix everything, but I'm asking for the chance to try. That's all I'm asking for. The inheritance isn't what matters anymore. What matters is what we do with this moment, with what we have left. Brock looked at me, his eyes shifting as though he was searching for something in my face. After what seemed like an eternity, he finally spoke. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, he said slowly. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to see if we can make this work. But it won't be easy. My heart lifted, a sense of relief washing over me. It wasn't a promise, but it was a step. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was on the right path. Thank you, I whispered, fighting back the tears. Thank you for trying.
As Brock stood up, I reached out my hand, and without a word, he pulled me into a hug. It was tentative, but it was real. And for the first time in years, I felt like there might be a way forward. As I watched him walk away, the question still lingered in my mind. Will we really make it, or is this just another false start?